Gimel Shvat, Shir Klali, Parshas Bo.
So turning this week's parsha to chapter Yud Aleph, Pasuk Beis, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So we find it right near the end of the dialogue between Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron and Paro when they get to sending the Yidden out of Mitzrayim. And it's holding managed by what you might call the vital point in Pasuk Koftes in the previous chapter. Vayem Moshe Kain Dibata Pari told Moshe that he should leave his presence and he should be careful never to see him again. And Moshe said, that's the way it'll be. So things are really reaching the climax point. And chapter Yud Aleph begins with a promise that the Machas B'choros is about to take place, and that was said to Moshe Rabbeinu in front of Paro, that particular nevuah. It was said to Moshe Rabbeinu while he was still in front of Paro, and that he's going to drive out Gorish Eschem. He says he's going to drive out all the Yidden, Mamish Begerushin, to get them out, Bekoyach, from Mitzrayim. And then there's a continuation and a siyum to that whole nevuah. Then the Eibush says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Daber no bi'oznei ha'om. Please no. The Gemara says, Ein no el Roshim b'kosher. Rashi brings it. When you use the expression no in addition to the normal words or verbs in Lashon Kodesh, that it means please. It's like it has the emphasis of a request, like a definite request. Daber no bi'oznei ha'om. You must talk into the ears of the people, meaning it must be a thing which reaches them clearly. Yishalu ish meyesh reyehu Isha miyeshra usa, that they should borrow literally. Yishalu, the word Yishalu stam means to borrow. Ish miyeshra yehu, each man from his neighbor. Ve'isha miyeshra usa, and each woman from her friend. Klei chesef or klei zahar. They should ask for golden vessels, silver vessels, and golden vessels. Vayitain Hashem eschein ha'om ve'einu Mitzrayim. The Eibush will give the grace to the people of the Jew, the Yidden, in the eyes of the Mitzrayim. They will make them full of grace and favor in the eyes of the Mitzrayim. Kamo ish Moshe gadol mi'od be'eretz Mitzrayim ve'inei avdei Paro. And also Moshe Rabbeinu it's going to be great. So we have to assume that there was like a further statement in addition to the nevuah that Moshe Rabbeinu was hearing from the Eibush. That Moshe Rabbeinu was also great, apart from the general favor and the general grace that the Yidden earned in the eyes of all the Mitzrayim. There was a special and what you might call admiration, ha'aracha, from all the people in Mitzrayim, both the Mitzrayim and the Yidden, for Moshe Rabbeinu. So we see here a continuation of something we met up with in Parsha Shmois, right at the beginning of this Sefer, where the Eibishter promised Moshe Rabbeinu that he would take the Yidden out of Mitzrayim. So at the end of the whole instructions that the Eibishter gave to Moshe Rabbeinu, he told Moshe Rabbeinu a very similar thing to what he repeats to him over here. And he says to Moshe Rabbeinu over there, "V'nosati eschein ha'olam hazeh b'einei Mitzrayim." I'm going to give that this people, meaning the Yidden, are going to find favor in the eyes of the Mitzrayim. V'hoya ki seilechon, and behold, when you will go, lo'yishelchu rikom, you're not going to go empty-handed, you're not going to go empty-pocketed or empty-handed. V'sho'alo isho mishachento umigoras peiso, that she should, each woman should ask from her neighbor and for those who dwell in and around her house, klei chesed v'klei zahov u'smolois, and also, how do you call them, garments. Smolos means like choshev, long garments. Nowadays a dress is called a simlar. But it doesn't mean in the original Lashon Kodesh Tafki dress. V'samtem al b'neichem v'al b'nei sechem, and you should place all these garments on your sons, on your children, on your sons and your daughters. V'nitzaltem es Mitzrayim, and you should literally take advantage or in some way empty out the whole of Egypt. You'll take out all the kesef v'zov and all the garments, and you leave Mitzrayim emptied out. And therefore, Rashi brings over there a long beer in this word, v'nitzaltem, grammatically. But he says that the pirush means that you'll empty out the whole of Mitzrayim. You'll literally take them, all of their riches and all of their possessions, in such a way that you'll leave them empty. Nitzaltem. It can mean like in some ways almost to trick or to like sort of take them in, and by way of that get away with all of their possessions. So we see that it was a promise made to Moshe Rabbeinu even before the whole shlichut, even before he began going to Mitzrayim. The Eibishter already promised him that this was going to take place. And over there the language is a little bit different. It mentions also garments. Over here in our place we don't mention garments, only the silver and the silver and gold, clay kesef, clay zahor. And it appears that this is a very basic, almost condition in the going out of Egypt, because the Eibishter says, after having told Moshe Rabbeinu all he's supposed to do, what's going to happen, he said, I'm going to give the grace of the Yidden in the eyes of the Mitzrayim, and this is going to take place, and he goes into detail. They must ask and they must request kesef, zahov. Over in that pasuk it only mentions the women, and in our pasuk it mentions both the men and the women. So that's a detail which we're not going to go into. However, what's this tremendous emphasis? You must take away all the gold and silver and even all the choshev garments from the wardrobes, as you might say, of the Mitzrayim. And it has to be done in a way that you will ask. You'll sort of, almost in a way, borrow it. You'll sort of ask them that they should lend you or give you in a way of what you might call not permanency. Well, they should lend it to you. And by way of that, you'll empty out and you'll like trick or take out from all the Mitzrayim all their possessions. Ask the question, what's the Indian? Then right before the whole finality of Yetzias Mitzrayim is about to take place, or the finality of the Makis, then the Eibishter reminds Moshe Rabbeinu and he says, please Yeah, don't forget, but remember to talk Biozneho or this whole Indian that they must take the Kesef for Zoho, and they must take, here it's not mentioned, the Samoloids. Now later on, in this week's Parsha, it actually happens. That when the Yidden go out, in chapter 12, and Pasik Laman Vav, I think it is, yeah, that when the Yidden are already going out, after the whole Machas Bechiras and the whole Korban Pesach and all the Inyanim occurred, and the Yidden are mamish on their way out, and we find that it's written on Pasik Laman Hey, V'nei Yisrael also Kidva Moshe, that the Yidden Taki did what Moshe Rabbeinu had asked them to do. V'yishalu mi Mitzrayim, and they asked for the Mitzrayim. If you don't mind, I don't like people drawing on the sides of the pages. If you listen, so people say, well, I draw, but I really listen. But I promise you that at least 40% of your attention goes into what you're scribbling. So therefore he said, you have to do Kidva Moshe, V'yishalu mi Mitzrayim, and you must ask from the Mitzrayim, Klei Chesed or Klei Zah. So they didn't take it, did it. This passage means that they did it. Ushmalois, and they asked garments. Vashem Noson is Chein Oam Beini Mitzrayim, Vayashilu, and they gave them whatever they asked for. Vayinachsluas Mitzrayim, and they, once again, Rashi says they emptied them out. In other words, the first one we find originally when Moshe Rabbeinu is being told B'chlal by Hashem what he should do. This whole thing comes up and it's mentioned as a very important factor. Then when the finality is about to take place, it hasn't quite taken place, Moshe Rabbeinu is told by Hashem again, and he's told him with a Noah, please mention this to the people, and Daber Be'oznei take all the Kli Kesef and Zav from the Mitzrayim and take away whatever they will give you. And then when the whole thing is completed and the Yidden are going out, they're leaving Mitzrayim. Then it's written that they did that they did what Moshe had told them, and they asked for Klei Kesef. And here it's mentioned again the Yidden of garments, even though in the middle point it's not mentioned about the garments. And over here, the fact that they took the garments, Rashi makes a whole meaning of that. Over here in Parsha, chapter Yud Beis, Rashi says that garments was even more choshev than the silver and was even more important than the silver and the Zohar. He said it was more important to them. So the question is, does he mean the Mitzvah or the Yidden? So most people have the opinion that he means the Yidden. And if you know you're going out on a journey into the Midbar, and who knows the heck, where you're going to live from, what's going to be, how it's all going to work out. I mean, Yidden just went out into the Midbar, took out from Mitzrayim, and they walked out into the Midbar. So to have garments and good garments, is it's a handy thing to have good clothes, particularly that they were avodim. So they only had simple, enslaved type of garments. Here they were taking good clothes, good suits, good, garments to wear against the sun and everything. Therefore Rashi says that they were even more important than the Kesef Zohar. Therefore it's written that they took from them, or they asked from them, Kesef Zohar, Klei Kesef Zohar, Smalois. Rashi says whatever you mention at the end of a pasuk is more important than what you mention first thing in the pasuk. Rashi says a cloud by the by. So he said the fact that when it actually came to Pearl Mammon, that they took from the Mitzrayim, they took Klei Kesef, they took Klei Zohar, but they took also the Smalois, but that wasn't mentioned earlier. That was only mentioned way back when Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu originally the whole thing. The fact that they mentioned Smalois finally in the pasuk is a symbol that was tremendously important to somebody. So we have to assume that it was important to the Yidden. And the Balaturim brings, and he says that we find that what did the Yidden need garments for? It's written, "Samtim al Penechem," that you should put them on your son. That's what originally Moshe Rabbeinu heard from the Eibishter. So the Baal brings that just a few psukim before that, it's written they picked up the botek, how do you call it, the dough that they were making the next lot of matzahs. First of all, they made matzahs what they call Pesach, and then as the night went on, before they left, they made a new lot of matzah, and they moved so quickly that it wasn't able to become chometz. So it's written that they wrapped it in their garments, and they put it around their necks like a, how do you call it, like, they carried like a package around their neck, and they wrapped up the botek and the chometz in the garment. So the Baal HaTurim said that the Yidden used these garments in order to carry the matzah with them out of Mitzrayim, and the rest of the garments they put on their children for the time being, because they were busy carrying the clay kesef with the clay zuhov. But however, we see from that they took garments, but they didn't take, exaggerated amounts of garments. However, and they used them for a mitzvah. Immediately they had to take with them the botek and the matzah, so they took the botek and the matzah in the garment. But as is also Shaila, what was this whole Indian that didn't have to, and they were obliged? Moshe Rabbeinu almost urged them that they must do this with an open urging of Hashem, that he should urge the Yidden that they must go out with all this gold and silver, to the point that they emptied out Mitzrayim. They left it almost, as you might say, empty. I would find the kasha that later on they still had plenty of kesef or zohar, because by the Yam Suf, it's written that the Yidden took all the spoil from the whole army of Paro, the whole does. After the sinking of the army of Paro in the Yam, they took all the spoil from what's called Bizas Hayam, it's called. Rashi brings down later, next week's Pasha, that was even more than all this that they took here. But it was said they emptied out Mitzrayim, and what were they doing with all the other kesef, Zohar? Well, that's, how do you call it, another kasha. It doesn't seem to bother anybody, so nobody shows any signs of surprise at such a question, so maybe we just leave it. I mean, it's not really the main theme of the class. I could get away with it if I... So some people want to answer that Mitzrayim was a huge place in those days. Mitzrayim was like the Balabosa of the whole civilized world at that point. So there were lots of like branches and sub-Medinas, like we find by Achashverosh in the Megillah, 127 different countries and Medinas who were under his control. So Mitzrayim was no less powerful at the time, and maybe even more. So there were a lot of different places that were under Mitzrayim. And the Yidden were in this place called Ramses, and at this particular time, without going into all the detail, they were also in the Ir HaMelukah. They were in the capital of Mitzrayim, where Pari was, and where there was a whole huge percentage of the Yidden. So that means that they emptied out the main part of the actual central Medina of Mitzrayim. Of Ein Chanami, there was still a lot of other places with a lot of kesef and zohar, and that they emptied out by the Yam Suf. In other words, what they didn't empty out, the Shlab Zeh, then they took it out by the Kriyas Yams. So I said, what's this tremendous emphasis? Why did they ask the Mitzrayim? That leads us to another problem, that they said to the Mitzrayim, lend me the garment, so lend me the clay kesef, a clay zohar. Now Rashi brings down near the early part of the Seder that how did they really know? Because a Mitzri would say to them, listen, I don't have. How did they know that all the Mitzrayim had? So everybody can in one chorus answer what is the teretz. So that Rashi brings it down to the beginning of the Seder, that during the 3 days of the darkness, it was so tremendously dark that the Mitzrayim couldn't move. They were absolutely thunderstruck. Therefore the Yidden just walked around and they peeked into everything that was going on in the houses of the Mitzrayim, so they knew where all the kesef was all, even if they had it hidden away in a special cupboard, or they kept it in a mouth or a cellar or a the Yid got around during those 3 days, and they knew where it was. So if a Mitri said to them, listen here, I don't have the, oh yes you do down there, and this and this, in this area, and in this place, v'chulu. So we see that it was all very, very well planned, this whole union of the Yidden getting literally in their hands, but they said it in a way of lending. So that rouses the question, I mean, to borrow something and not give it back is not a particularly, nice thing. It's not a particularly geschmack thing to do. So ask yourself the question, how did they really get their hands on this tremendous riches of the Mitzrayim? Because those, particularly in the central area of Mitzrayim, they were all where all the well-to-doers were, where all the big well-to-do Mitzrayim were. So they got their hand on all this tremendous wealth in a way that looks sort of strange. Please lend us. And then they said, oh yes, we'll lend them. And they're only going out for 3 days, according to the way they thought at that point. And they'll be coming back, and then they'll come back into slavery, so they'll lose all the cheek that they've got now, and we'll get back all of our stuff. Well, that's like a Genevus Hadas. I mean, that's like deceiving people. And you can't very well say, well, what does it matter? I mean, these are Mitzrayim. What does it matter if you deceive them? Well, you're not supposed to deceive a goy. You're not supposed to take his ownership by way of trickery. Because Genevus Hadas, or Genevus Kipshuta, Genevus Momen, from a goy is a Isa. According to many of the great poskim, it's also minah. It's also minah Torah to do that. So, I mean, how is it the Yidden and the Moshe Rabbeinu urges them that they must ask? And the original promise to Moshe Rabbeinu is that they should ask. Well, that seems to imply to borrow. You borrow millions and stuff, and then you don't intend giving it back, and it's on a massive scale. How are you? So it takes us back to an even further step. But when we think carefully about it, then this is not the first time that this issue has been brought up. So you might say, well, when was it brought up the first time? So you guys are also busy with all sorts of other inyanim, in Avodas Hashem and in Torah, and you've got time for all sorts of good Sachen. But the question is, what do you remember your chittas from one day to the other? And I don't blame you necessarily, because there's a lot to learn, and your head's only able to absorb a certain amount, and your internet's been chopped off, so you don't have the internet, you don't have these computers to pack away all your information in, or maybe you do. But anyway, whatever. It's I didn't notice any particular grieved looks on people's. Anyway, way back in Pasha Lech Lecha, in Bereshis, it was mentioned this whole Inyan. Where was it mentioned? In the Bris Bein HaBesorim, in the famous bris that the Eibishter made with Avraham Avinu, that he's going to give him Eretz Yisrael, that's going to first of all be a shi'ubud in Mitzrayim. There's going to be an enslavement of the Yidden by a goy, loy lohem, a goy that they don't belong to, the whole thing, and they're going to, enslave them for 400 years, and there's a whole big cheshbon in Rashi over there. The Yidden were only in Mitzrayim for 210 years. How does that work out? That's a tremendously big bother. Oh, anyway, we worked that one out. And then he says, David says to Avraham Avinu, and he said they're going to slave your people and work them. He said, after that, I'm going to judge them. I will judge them. And then after that, Yetzu B'Rechush Godel, that they're going to leave Mitzrayim with a tremendous, richness or ownership. Achrei Kain Yetzu B'Rechush Godel. I say the Hebrew says to Avraham. So that seems to be. So comes along Rashi over there. Rashi says Momin Harbe. A very short Rashi. He doesn't say much about it. What is Rechush Godel? Rashi says over there Momin Harbe. A lot of money. As they say in Yiddish, Asach Geld. That's the beauty. Momin Harbe means Asach Geld. So you've probably heard that expression in America.
No money.
Asach Geld. So I asked myself the question, what's it to it? All of a sudden, there comes in a verse, there's going to be the whole enslavement and people are going to go out, and they're not going to go out but with Rechush Gote. And that's what Abraham says to Moshe right at the beginning in Parashat Shmois. He says to him, when you're going to go out, you're not going to go empty. The house is going to be kept, that I promised Avraham Avinu. How is it going to be kept? So this action of having to ask the Mitzrayim to give it with you, to borrow from them, or even we just saw. So I asked the question, what's this union of Avraham Avinu being promised Momen How? They're going to be, the Yidden were promised right way back. Long before the whole thing occurred, they were promised already that they're going to be going out with a lot of money. Momen How? What is it the union of that? Why should there? And it seems to be a essential condition in the whole going out of Mitzrayim that there would be this union of Momen How, because immediately that the Abraham says it's going to be down on earth, I'm going to judge these people. And so that's a whole question. It's all right, the famous Shaila in the Rambam and other places, that if the Mitzrayim anyway, they have to put the Yidden, because the Abraham said they're going to do it, and so why'd they get punished for it? It was all decided from heaven that it was going to have to happen anyway. Yeah, well, they're going to Shaila that occurs in the Rambam later in the Erachim HaKodesh, with great arichas, brings down all the different datas in that matter. Although suffice it to say that together with that, immediately there's a condition that they're going to go out with all this new issue of Momen How. So Rashi doesn't say that that's going to be a certain, what you might call, defined definitional status of money. In other words, that you're going to earn the money, or the money's going to be paid to you as a result of a certain, what you might call, obligation on the part of the Mitzrayim, or you're just going to get Momen How of it. So I thought the Shaila, what's it the union with there? And then comes along Moshe Rabbeinu when he's told to take the Yidden out, even before he begins the whole thing. The Eibishter reminds him about it, and the Eibishter says to him that you must realize that that's going to take place, but in an even of Shalu. You're going to have to literally borrow it or ask for it from the Mitzrayim. So if we go back to our Pasuk, where we started the whole shir in Yud Aleph base, where I don't know if you guys anyway turned your pages at all. If we go back to where we were, then we see that Rashi brings down a very interesting, what you might call a hook line to this whole inyan. Rashi says, well, where we were in Yud Aleph, what pasuk were we in Yud Aleph? Beis, pasuk Beis. Yeah. So he says, Daber no bi'oznei ha'am, v'yishalu ish me'yesh re'ehu, v'ish me'yesh re'uso. So comes along Rashi, and he says, Daber no, and he brings the Gemara in Brachos, which says that Ein no el aloshim bakosha, that the word no is only when we're making a statement that involves a plea, an urgent plea or direct plea to somebody, please do kaf v'kaf. So the word no indicates this union of Kosher. So the Eibishter says to Moshe Rabbeinu, why am I pressing you about this union of Kosher mimcho? I'm asking you, in other words, I'm begging you, Hazhireim, you should warn them, al kach, that they must do this. Therefore I'm saying to you, Daber no, I'm really requesting you that you should ask them. Yeah? And what should you ask them? That they should do this taking of the money from the Mitzrayim. Why? Shelo yoyma oisei tzaddik Avraham, that great tzaddik called Avraham shouldn't be able to say ve'ivdum ve'inu oisom kiyem bohem, that they would have to serve the Mitzrayim. That's the pasuk over there in Braces in Lech Lecha, that they would have to serve the Mitzrayim and they would be enslaved. That you kept in them. That Avraham Avinu might be able to say to the Eibishter, that you kept. V'achrei kain Yetzu b'rechush godel lo yikir behem. If I don't see they take all the gold and silver from the Mitzrayim, then Avraham Avinu will have a taina. How do you say Avraham Avinu will be able to say, listen, yeah, the really adequate, grimy part of the deal you kept, and you enslaved him, and you did all that. But where's the big money part of it? Where's the rechush godel? Since I'm concerned that Avraham Avinu come to me with a taina, therefore you guys have to do it. Moshe Rabbeinu is told by the Eibishter, please ask him and see that they do it. Kilu, Hashem himself, Hashem Yisbarach, is concerned that he's going to have a heavy deal with Avraham Avinu, that Avraham Avinu is going to say, listen, you kept the really difficult part, but what about the rechush godel? I told the Shaila, I don't understand. If the Eibush have already promised Avraham Avinu that he's going to do it, and he told Moshe Rabbeinu when he has to take the Yidden out, that you've got to make sure that this gets done, that they take all the Rechush Godel, then the Eibush has to keep it below of you. I mean, anything Hashem said, he's going to not do, chas v'sholem. The Eibush says a certain thing, and he doesn't do it. It's a significant matter like that. And why does the Eibush have to say to Moshe Rabbeinu, please push the Yidden that they should do it, because otherwise I'm going to be in trouble with Avraham Avinu? He's going to say to me, look, this part of the grimy part you kept, but where's the chushka? God, so isn't that strange that Rashi says that the whole motivation of Hashem in telling Moshe about no, please, was not so much no legabi the Yidden, but it was kilo no legabi Moshe Rabbeinu, that he should push the Yidden, that he shouldn't be in difficulty with Avraham Avinu. So that takes us back to the Bris Ben Abasarim. And it seems that the Eibishter, as it were, without all the inyanim, that it's nice for people to have all the good things of the Mitzrayim, Lamalo. There seems to be a binding thing that the Eibishter promised Avraham Avinu, that Yidden would have this moment. It seems to be a binding on the part of Hashem, that he committed himself to this Indian, that there would be big guilt. As they say in America, Sach, in Australia also probably. And in South Africa, I'm sure they do. A Sach guilt, that was a Indian. Avraham Avinu was the one that he got the promise. Oh, why do you say, if I don't keep it, Avraham Avinu is going to... How can I possibly face Avraham? How can I face Avraham Avinu? And also, what's the Etzim Minyan? Why would it bother Yidden, Mom and Harvey? Was it this whole, such a lot of money? We're still going to see a Gemara which says that there's no doubt in anybody's mind that in order to get out of Mitzrayim a day earlier, the Yidden would have been prepared to say, forget the whole money part of it, just get us out of here. In other words, that it seems that the whole, the money is like an extra thing that somebody really wanted to get out of hundreds of years of enslavement, generations of enslavement. He wouldn't say, I can't go here because where's all the money I'm supposed to be making here? So let's deal with the matter sort of point by point, even though there are many points as we see. One of the things that comes up and is very noticeable in the whole matter is that the Yidden were told to borrow. That's what the simple Lashon appears. So come along some of the great early commentators, and they hint the early period commentators, not Rashi, but the Ebenezer and the Rashbam and others, and the really great early commentators, the Rabbeinu B'chaya, he talks about it very strongly. And they say the question we mentioned earlier, how could you encourage Yidden to literally borrow? And it appears, in their words, that there was a whole movement of apikursim, or people. There's always been these troublemakers all throughout history. There's always been, like the Rebbe once said by one of the Fabringans, that you always had these ism guys, that they weren't satisfied with Yidden and with the Torah and with the Gemara and with all the things that we've had, Kabbalah. They always want to make some new ism, some new zach that Yidden should adhere to. So there was these ism guys that they were looking at some way to hit at the Torah, and it appears that this is one of their favorite topics. And they said, look in your Torah, that when according to your version, that when the Yidden went out, look what they did. They borrowed things from people and never gave them back. Now, remember, that's a terrible thing. That's a sign that the whole Torah is, who knows what, chas v'sholem v'rach, to say as amizah. And they come along, and they want to say that the word to ask, the word sha'al, in Lashon Kodesh, normally and basically means, there's a whole parak in Bava Metzia called Perek HaShoyel, or is a shoyel means to borrow. Normally speaking, in Lashon of our sages, the word shoyel means to borrow. But it can also imply that I asked for. In other words, I asked for that you give me as a matana. Not that I borrowed it, but I requested it. In other words, I just said, listen here, give this to me. Now, remember, the Mitzvah gave it to them as a gift. Therefore, there was nothing improper in that regard. And it was only that the Yidden weren't anxious to go around asking matanas. Therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu had to urge them that they should do it. But it's not Lashon borrowing, but it's Lashon give, Lashon matana. That's what a lot of the great Mephoshim, they want to avoid the whole issue, and they want to say it wasn't a borrowing, but a full matana. However, the Mashah in Masechet Brachot, which we're going to bring in a minute, he doesn't agree with that whole approach, because he said that if you can imagine a situation that the Mitzrayim were in, and the matzah that the Yidden were in, and all of a sudden you have hundreds and thousands of these Yidden coming at your door, and they say, listen, we want you to give us all your stuff as a matana, then immediately the Mitzrayim can say, matana, well, I should give away all my stuff to them. In other words, it would come out that they would realize that these guys are going permanently. If they're trying to take all of our stuff in the form of a fixed gift and a permanent gift, then they must be going out in a way they don't intend coming back. Is that at that stage they wouldn't have allowed such a thing. And we have to say, said the Marshal, we have to say that in effect they did actually ask to borrow it, and there was a purpose in that, because by borrowing it they were expecting to get it back the whole time. All of a sudden they see 3 days go by and they didn't have it come back, so then they all get anxious and worried and angry and furious, and what do? They all gather together and they chase after the Yidden. And what happened, Demos? The Mitzrayim went into the Yamsuf, and there occurred the whole nest from Yamsuf, the whole Mitzrayim were drowned. And remember, the whole amazing nest occurred, and then the Yidden, none of it got what they took from the Mitzrayim when they were leaving. They got all the rest of it in the business Hayom. They got it on the Yamsuf. And remember, the Natzlu es Mitzrayim legamen, completely. Ever said the Manshubah, they had to ask Dafki by way of borrowing, because the divine purpose was that they should chase after the Yidden after the 3 days and get as far as Yam Suf and drown them all in the Yam Suf. But had they asked for a matana, then they would have said, wait a minute, what's the business with a matana? And there might have been a war between the Yidden and the Mitzrayim even before they got out, and that wasn't the divine plan. That wasn't what the Eibusha had in mind. I said unto Mashah, therefore he goes down with the idea that it was in the form of asking for a borrow, asking for a loan, as it were. I was to show why would the Abish to put in a Matsu, where later many people who don't want to be ma'amik in the they don't want to understand what's really going on, are they would be able to say, well, the Abish to encourage the Yidden to do a thing which is a Torah, guilty makubo behechlet. It's a very unpleasant thing to do, to borrow and deceive somebody into giving you something that you don't intend to give. You don't intend to give back, Klal. Oh, Klal, and Ramashi didn't give it back, Klal. So therefore, what do we do when we face a Messias like this? Yeah, then we take a look in the Gemara and see what's written over there. And we'll see what's written over there, or this whole thing, that Daber no bi'oznei ha'am, Gemara b'Masechta Brachos Daf Tes, Amrei Debei Rabbi Yanai, the Talmidim from the Beis HaMedrash of Rabbi Yanai, but he was one of the very early Amoraim, if not the Tanoim. Ein no el Oshem Bakoshe. Well, as a matter of fact, he's buried out in Tzfas, at the back of the hospital, at the place called Akbara. You know what Akbara is?
No.
Yeah, Akbara is actually an Arab town, but it's mentioned in the Gemara. There's a place called Akbara mentioned in the Gemara. Yeah, anyway, you've never been there. Well, nowadays I don't know if it's good idea to go there because it's a big Arab village. But I once went around the back of it. I got attacked by dogs. These big, these rich Arabs, they got these huge dogs to protect their property. They were huge, big, growling, their teeth open, coming at them. So I eventually got round to the cave room. I eventually got past them. But it was quite a bit of work. Anyway, that's Rabbi Yanai. He's so the Talmidim of the Beis Medrash of Rabbi Yanai, and they said, "Ein no el Oshen Bakosha." The word "no" means a begging. Omalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe, like Rashi brings, please say to the Yidden that I am saying to you, Bakosha mi kem. In other words, there's two Bakoshas. The Eibishter presses Moshe Rabbeinu, and he says, you should say to the Yidden Bakosha. And when Rashi quoted it, he quoted quickly. He didn't sort of put in that full picture. He should ask from Klei Kesef, Klei Zohar, Shelo Yoim Mois Tzaddik, that you kept one part of the deal, which was the grimy part, but you didn't keep the giving of all the Kesef Zohar. Why do you have to say Bakosha Mikem? Homrulei. But the Yidden said to Moshe Rabbeinu, V'lavai sheneitzu b'atzmeinu. Let's go out the way we are. Who said we need all this riches? Moshe li'odam she'oya chavush b'beis asurim. A Moshe, a man, when he finds himself in prison, Rachmani Niklan, v'hoyu eimrim lei, moitziin oischol amocha mibeis asurim, v'neisnu l'cha momen havi. Tomorrow we're going to let you out, and we're going to give you money into the bar. But you got to wait till tomorrow. So what does the guy say? Let me out today. I don't ask for all your money. In other words, that if you happen to be Rahman in Iklan in jail and you got the slightest chance to get out, then you're going to get out. You're not going to worry about staying another day, even if you're going to get Mom in Har Bay. And if Moshe Rabbeinu had to push the Yidden, he had to say, there's a sign, make sure you keep that part of it. It might take another day or so, but we've got to keep that part of the deal. Why? Because we don't want Avraham Avinu to come with time. And so here we see an amazing thing, and the Rebbe quoted it on many occasions, that Yidden in the Golas, even though they knew they were going to get this unbelievable amount of money, they said to the Eibishter, let us out a day before and forget the Gansuruchim. So when that comes out that the whole thing wasn't mitzadeh to Yidden, the whole bakosha and the money, and the whole looking for the money, what I'm going to do is, the Rechush God, even the Somalis, with Adwood Rashi, that's tremendously choshev, that wasn't mitzadeh Yidden. The Yidden weren't pressing the whole Indian cloud. Because as far as the Yidden were concerned, they said to the Eibishter, let us out and even an hour early and forget the Gansuruchim. But the Rebbe said that on numerous occasions when they get to the Golas HaAchrei and the Golas B'Klau, that Yidden are prepared to say to the Eibishter, forget all the Chesboinim, the union that there might be in the union of the Golas, just get us out of here. V'yofer sho'achas koidem, the earlier and 1 hour earlier, all the better. Forget all the other inyanim, and here is millions. I mean, the whole riches of the Mitzrayim. He didn't say, forget it all, just let us out, right? right now. Well, for another follows that you can't time it that the whole thing was purely for the sake of the Yidden. You can't say it was for their toilers, and the Marshal talks about it also. And you can't really argue that the Yidden, the Abish was worried that the Yidden should have all the money. Because the Yidden said, forget your money. Let us out of the gold. Vayashi Loom, said the Gemara, they talk again, like in the later pasuk that we learned. Over Arami, Malami, Shihishilum, Baal Kocho. It comes along the Gemara, and the Gemara says that when it actually came to the point, then the Mitzrayim were forcing things on the Yidden. They say, take this and take something else. As put down in the Meforshim, the Yid came to the door and he said, SHK, give me kach v'kach. And the Mitzrayim said, oh, don't just take that, take this and that. And they mami stooped it on the Yidden. In other words, they were so anxious that they take all this stuff that they did it. You had to go Baal Kocho, forcibly. And then comes along the Gemara and it says, V'yinatzlu es Mitzrayim, that they tricked them to the point of being empty. Yeah, Omar Abami Malamed She'asua Kimetsuda She'ein Bo Dogon. That they emptied out the whole Mitzrayim, and it was like a bird trap that had no wheat in it. And a bird trap in the old days used to have these big traps where they caught these feathers and other birds. They would put, wheat and other things on the bottom of the thing, and the poor birds would come looking for the wheat, and they'd get caught in the trap. Kimetsuda She'ein Bo Dogon. In other words, it was left without any dogon at the bottom. Or another opinion is with Omar Reish Lakish, Kimatsula She'ein Bo Dagim. Or it was like the depths of the sea, that there's no fish over there. Maybe there is right at the bottom. But what the Gemara means to say is that in the depths of the sea you don't catch fish. They're too deep, or they're not there. Over near the edges of the sea, more closer to the land. They made it like a Mutsula She'ein Bo Dogen. There's no fish over it. So the truth is, it's brought down on Siddur, what's the difference between the two expressions? Kimatsula She'ein Bo Dogim, or Kimatsula Dogon, or Kimatsula She'ein Bo Dagim. What's the difference? Why would one say that way and one say the other? But that's not the point of this particular section of the class. Suffice it to say that they left it as an empty thing that didn't have all the other essential nakuda that it's supposed to have. That you can't have a sea without fish, and you can't have a pheasant, a trap without wheat. Well, for now it's mashma that the whole thing is missing. They left the Mitzrayim, as they say in Yiddish, oish leidig legamre. They took them out and emptied them out, and therefore Rashi brings over here also that ein v'yinatzlu kitarguma ela reikunin. You have to empty them out. So Rashi says here, and he brings in the Chumash twice, that the nitzalta means to empty them out altogether. So we just have to deal with one more issue, and then we'll try summing up the whole inyan. And the other issue is that the Yidden worked in Mitzrayim. They worked a heck of a lot of work, and the Mitzrayim enslaved them and made life intolerable, and the whole arichas inyan is if you have somebody working for you and you're supposed to pay him money. You could say, well, no, they didn't have to pay him anything because they were slaves. They took them, they enslaved them. And a Eved Kanani, you don't pay him. Somebody who's mamisha Eved, you don't have to pay him. A Eved Ivri, Hebrew, if you have a Hebrew servant, then you have to pay him. And therefore, the Rabbeinu Bechai, I think it is, brings down here, or the Orachim HaKodesh, one of them, brings down that the fact that the Yidden took all this money out is like a remez. As the Gemara says, if you have a Jewish servant, then you bought yourself more of a boss than you have a servant, because you've got to give him so many things that you're all the time looking after him more than what he manages to serve you. And therefore the mitzvah meant the Jews as their servants, and when he leaves you've got to give him a big free payment. You know, when a Jewish servant finishes his time, then you have to give him a reward, a hanoka. You have to give him a hanoka, quite a big thing. You've got to give him, you know, all the best things you got. You got to give him a big bag full of stuff to take with him. So they want to say that this whole fact that he took all the money was like a certain remez to the fact that if you're ever going to have a Jewish servant, then you're going to have a big packle on your shoulder. However, suffice it to say, whatever, we see that can't we kind of maybe that the Yidden worked hard as they didn't get paid. Now a thing like this we find in another Gemara, in the Gemara Masechta Sanhedrin, and it's very fascinating to see how history repeats itself. Very amazing thing. It's written that when Alexander the Great, he's called in the Gemara language Alexander Mokdon, that's what they call him, Alexander Mokdon. When he was from the Greek, he was a pure Greek, and therefore the Mashal brings it, he was from Yefes, he was from the other son of Noah. We're from Shem, and he wasn't from Shem, he was from Yefes, and the Canaanim are there from Canaan. Yeah. So, it's brought down over there, an amazing story, that in the time when Alexander Mokdon had conquered Eretz Yisrael, he was holding power over here, and he had power in all the world around. It's written that a whole bunch of Canaanim who'd managed somehow or another to get themselves over to Africa, they stayed in Africa, they came walking over, and they came in front of Alexander Mokdon, and they made a whole big Yidden Torah with him, and they said that the Yidden are going to give us back Eretz Yisrael. They're going to give us back Eretz Yisrael, because we are Canaanim, and it's written in the Torah that who are you going to be given? You're going to be given way over Bamidbar. The Abish is telling the Yidden how they're going to get Eretz Yisrael. It's written Eretz Canaan V'ulei Seha. You're going to get the whole Eretz Canaan according to it. So they say, well, you see, the Abish call it Eretz Canaan. Canaan, it means it still belongs to us. Is what you did was you pinched it from it. Now, where else did you hear a title like that? You hear that title nowadays, but Rashi, the first Rashi on the Chumash, he brings it. The Goyim are going to say that at one point or another in history, they're going to say, you guys took it away from him. And that's exactly what happened. And these guys came in front of Alexander the Great because they knew that he was a big, knob, and he was a big troublemaker. And they thought that they would use their influence with him to get Eretz Yisrael back out of the hands of the Yidden. And the Mashal makes a very interesting point that they did a very wise thing, because Alexander the Great being Yefes, then he was a brother with Shem, and it's written that Canaan was their younger brother, that Canaan was going to be an Eved both to Shem and Yefes. So if we're going to say that anything that belongs to a Rav, to the Eved, belongs automatically to the Rav, then it means he also gets half of Eretz Yisrael. Anyway, you guys are all first loving. I'll say, if you think carefully about it, they did very cleverly. I'll say something to Mashal. And yet Alexander Mokdon, unfortunately, he didn't cut that part of it. But the answer, so what happened was, there was one of the Chachamim in those days that he had a hunchback. And he was called Gavia ben, what's his name? I forgot his second name. He was called Gaviha because he had a Gavin, how do you call it? He had a hunchback. And he looked a very sort of insignificant little sort of a guy, but really he was a tremendous and unbelievable Chacham. Chacham Satira, alle Inyanim. So all the Chachamim were worried, what are we going to do with these Canaanim who come in front of Alexander the Great, what are we going to do? So it's written that Gavia, he said he's going to go and heal Taina, and he said if they beat me, then, it'll be better. He said if I win, then everybody will say that Torah's Moshe won. In other words, he took himself out of it, and he said that the Torah one. And he said, oh, that's right. He said, if they beat me, then you'll be able to say, well, he's the little Gornish, who's this little guy, you won't have a great deal of shame from him. So anyway, he gets there, all these guys from Canaan, they all come over from Africa, and they stand in front of Alexander the Great. He said, no, we should will touch, what's your problem? So they say, Eretz Canaan, in their Torah, it's still called Eretz Canaan, it still belongs to us. So this Gavir bin Judge, he said to him, yours, Eretz. He said, it belongs to you. But he said, since it belongs to you, automatically it belongs to us. It's called Mashakona Eved, Kana Rabbi. And it's in the Torah that Canaan will be an Eved to his brothers in Parshanuyah. So anything that ever purchases automatically belongs to his but automatically says the Mashal belongs to Alexander to himself, if he's there, if he tainazu. But he, fortunately, he didn't have that. He didn't say anything. So the Canaanim said, "Oi, Gewalt, give us 3 days to think about it." They stayed thinking, well, they wanted 3 days to think about it. They went around for 3 days and they never came. They never came back. So then another bunch showed up quite some time later, and they said they were Mitzrayim. They said they were descended from the original Mitzrayim, and they say that we want back all the money, all the kesef, besohom, and all the smalois, all the dresses, and all the things that you guys took when you went out from Mitzrayim. It's written that you borrowed it, but you never gave it back. So it's due us back all the money is due back to her. That's what they said. So they called him Gavir bin, what was his name? Called him in, and he said, okay, you guys, he said, just imagine if you had some peoples who they worked for you for 400 years. I mean, he said 400, well, Lamont, it wasn't 400, it's like 210. But the Marshal, another says he said that in order to sound impressive. 400 years. And Alexander Meister, he was a good soldier, but in other things he wasn't very informed. But anyway, I said it to Meister. So he wasn't very informed, so he didn't know that Nafkim for 10 years, and 210 years, 400 years. So he said, look, you had all the Jewish people working for 430 years. You should make 600,000 minimum. That's males. Work for 430 years. He said, how much does that cost? Medical wages. So I said, oh, we'll have to have 3 days to think that over. And they went away and they never came back. So it looks as if they had a very beautiful time, Dimitri, but to be at an even better one, he said that the money was due to the Eden. It's mashkoret, that is a wages for all the work they did. So from that it would appear, and some of the great Rishonim say that the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu said that you have to go do it and ask him and take away all these inyonim, etc., was because it was it was and he got wages for all the work that he didn't put in. If that's the case, why is it that the Moshe Rabbeinu had to persuade the Indian and say, listen, go do this, go do that, make sure you borrow, make sure you do something else? He should have just said, get together Para and a few other guys and say, listen here, we've been working here for 210 years, so much per day for each year, pay up. What would he have said? I'll get together as much as I can, but I can't possibly pay up that amount. So the said, when come up with whatever you got. Why is that not written? No, it's written in some other businesses. You must ask, and you must this, and you must that. It seems, so it would seem, that this Taina, that this Gavir Ben, or whatever his name was, that he came up with, that's like a very brilliant Taina, but maybe that was to get rid of the Mitzrayim, because that's the sort of thing that they would understand. If you were to go and tell them some deeper in it, and they would just say, we don't know what you're talking about, we want money. So he said, yeah, listen here, you want your money? We got it because we worked for it. But when you look in the Pesukim, and when you look in the whole way that this thing occurred, and the whole surroundings, and the whole Inyan, which it built up to, and then there was a further bizo on the Yam Suf, it seems that it didn't actually go in that way. And particularly if we'll say that there were, the Yidden were slaves, so you might say, well, a Yid can't be a slave, but, it's hard to say that it was just, the whole thing was in order to get the wages back. It should have been written somewhere in the book. Elamai, that's a very brilliant time on a part of a very brilliant Chacham, Israel, in order to be Masalik to Goyim in a way that they wouldn't have any what to think over, and they wouldn't show up again. But Ulai Zelo Atama Amiti. Ulai that there is also a certain Sachar Aveda. Although then when the Eibishter promised it to Moshe Rabbeinu, to Avraham Avinu, he didn't say, they are working very hard and everything, and then when they go out, they'll get back their Schar Aveda. It should have been written in the Torah. They will make sure that you get paid for it. It doesn't seem that that's really the Pnimis, or how do you call it, the Pnimis Inyan. And therefore we have to say that there's something more profound at work here, something much more, the Kola Inyan is there, that's very similar to what we're going to find in that very first Rashi in the Torah. And that's what the Eben Ezra comes along. He throws in a word here, the Eben Ezra, which when you first look at it, you say, oh, yes. And then when you think about it in a moment, your eyes sort of jump out, and you begin to think, what has he thrown in here, the Eben Ezra? And he says that there were a lot, like we said, there were a lot of people, the Doirais made a whole fuss out of this, and they tried to introduce Apikuruses. From them, what the Eibishter urged the Yidden that they should take things shaloika kedin, as you might say, by borrowing and not giving back, or the whole thing. And he says, Elamai, says the Eben Ezra, he said there's no stealing in it, and there's no nothing. He said, he said, because the Eibishter is the balabas of the whole world. The whole world belongs to the Eibishter. What did Hashem do? He took it from them and he gave it to the Yidden. Who bedaite lochach mitzrayim v'nosan la'am Yisrael. Are they schreibt the Eben Ezra? I said, wait a minute, what are you doing? The Eibishter, let's say Pliny walks into some place, he steals away at gunpoint or something, several $1,000,000, and he gets in a car and drives off, and everybody says, oh, your vodka's on the right, go, have a good journey. Why? Because the Eibishter runs the world. The Eibishter gave it to the bank, and now the Eibishter gave it to you. Wait. Can't you tie to them? What's the Eben Ezra want? He said, the Eibishter, he owns the whole world. Who like it? L'kach et ze mehem v'nosen la'am Yisrael. So what is the obvious answer? The answer is that this was a mitzvah to the Yidden. And that's what the Gemara says. And the Gemara says that the Yidden thought it wasn't a mitzvah at the beginning. The Yidden thought that it was for their benefit. They thought it was like a big gift that the Eibishter was giving them, tremendous encouragement. They would have all this gold and silver. And therefore they said, listen, we'd love to get out of here so much. And we don't want it all. We're prepared to overlook it. Just get us out of here. Even a day earlier, we would overlook it. And therefore, the Yidden didn't really hop at the beginning that this was mamish a mitzvah from the Eibishter. And the it's written that by Yom Hashem El Moshe, and like we saw in the Gemara, there's two no's here. Rashi, for reasons which I won't go into right now, Rashi avoids the two no's. He just states one no. But so of course, what the Gemara says, there are really two pleasers. First of all, the Eibishter said to Moshe Rabbeinu, please tell the Yidden to do this, and then Moshe Rabbeinu was supposed to say to the Yidden, please do this, because he knew the Yidden would say, forget all your riches, we just want to get out. And the fire, you have to say to him, no, please do that. In other words, that the Yidden walk up to it, it's a commandment, it's a tzivui. It should be that way. And that's what the Eben Ezra means. The Eben Ezra means that the Eibishter deliberately interfered here, and he said to Moshe, in my name, tell them, beg them that they should do this, because I know they're not going to be particularly verkocht in the whole Indian. That's why you tell them it's my Indian, it's a tzivui, you have to do it. And that's what right at the beginning, before Moshe Rabbeinu went, he wasn't being told what the Yidden are going to feel and how they're going to feel. He was interested in getting them out for sure. Ain't no chanami. The Yidden were fed up, they were in a terrible matzah. And things had got incomparably worse, or were getting, or about to get incomparably worse. And all of a sudden, the Abish said, yeah, but when they will leave, they shouldn't leave. Very good, Raycon. They shouldn't leave without taking all these in Yonim, and therefore Rashi over there, but the Brisbane Abasar, he doesn't say for who and why. He just says they're going to leave with Mom and Harbe. And that's what the Abish says to Moshe Rabbeinu. Take in mind that I'm telling you that's a condition in the whole going out. And the Abish said to do it that way. That's what the Ebenezer means. This was a tzivui from the Meibestad. And the Abish said, take it out from the Mitzri, boy, even kach v'kach, and take all the gold and all the silver, middaguns, samolis, with a whole barichas, and that's a commandment from the divine pink to every other in Yonim command. And remember, you don't worry about your own benefit when you're faced with a commandment. It's gambazelo. And that's what's mabatal, what the Yidden said, we would be prepared to get out one day, you forget about the whole thing. And the Father Moshe Rabbeinu said, no, this doesn't the Indian. Even though that taina remains a right taina, because the Rebbe said, you can't say, even a thing in the Gemara, it's a story of Bedel Kisal Chadai, it's not the ultimate maskona, but everything in the Gemara teaches us a tremendous Indian. And so that teaches us, this unbelievable Indian, that you are prepared to get out of the course at any moment, any time. Anyway, whatever. We see Lefizeh that the whole thing's a divine requirement. That this moment in Harupi is not the Yidden's Indian, it's the Eibishter's Indian. And that's what the Ebenezer means. If it's the Eibishter's Indian, then he can pick up on the board and move over to there and give it to somebody else. The name is Zeko, you can't come with any taina. If the Eibishter moves it from one point on the chessboard to the other, then that's his Indian. And that's because he's Balabayas or Kolo Ilam Kolo. As he can do what he likes. But once he moved it over there, then until he says that he's going to move it back or something else is going to happen, then Kain Yakum, that's the way it has to be. And remember, all that money belongs to the Yidden, Mekan Ulava. Because the Eibishter gives out that that's it. That's the matzah. I heard a Remes one, I once heard a shiur from the Tledenberg, the sons of Rob Zekatarik Levov, heard from him a shiur, and he timed it another thing. He said similar to that is right the very creation of the world that's written over there in Rashi, that the world was created for the sake of the Yidden and for the sake of the Torah. And if wherever Yidden go, if the Goyim don't conduct themselves in a way of bittul to the Torah and to the Yidden, then the Yidden become the Balabatim B'Torah Mamela. The Goyim show that they're not makabel what is really the Eibishter's Emes Kavana, and Mamela, they don't have the right to run their own country. The Yidden just take over. And therefore he said that's what it means, that everything belonged to the Yidden B'Torah Mamela, because the Mitzrayim didn't know how to be Noyed Kovi. It was anyway a gezerah that the Yidden had to be in their country. But that's what the Hanukkah says. Okay, they have to be in your country, but you didn't have to treat them the way you did. In other words, that the Mitzrayim showed that they didn't want the whole Indian of Tikkun HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Takonos HaKadosh Baruch Hu, didn't have to be in Mitzrayim. They wanted to be the Balabatim over the Eibishter and over the Yidden. And therefore, Paro said, I don't know who's Avaya. He said, I might know that there's such a thing as a divine being of Isis from the whole Indian, what you guys are trying to sell me, basically. And what does that lead to? That in last week's Haftarah, the last week's parasha, he said, I am the Nile, I own the Nile, and I made the Nile, I am the guns of Balabah, including the divinity. That's where it ends up. And like the Alter Rebbe brings it down in Perikop near the end, that's the immediate sin of an Avodah Zarah. Avodah Zarah doesn't mean you deny the existence of Hashem. The Alter Rebbe writes it clearly over. You say that I, apart from the Yevish, am also a Balabah. He's a balabas, I'm also a balabas. He's a big balabas, but he doesn't care what I do, I care what I run the whole show. I state in Tanya though, that's a Venezuela. And in Dakis, what it comes out is that a person thinks that he's running his own life. I'm also a little bit of a balabas. Yeah, Torah mitzvahs. Oh yeah. And the Alter Rebbe said that that's Emes Avodah Zarah. Look over in chapter 22. Emma, Lefi Zeh kommt is that if we time it that way, that the Chlusberg is not Gishmak Hazar. He said a very amazing thing. That really, when Yidden came into the Mitzrayim, they were meant to be, it's like that was a gezerah for the Eibusha. Oh, the Goyim said, no, we're running the show. It's not the Eibusha's gezerah, it's our gezerah. As I was saying, the Yidden really take over the Mamela. The Yidden become the Mamela, the Balas of the whole country. And if they had to take it, when they left, they had to take it because everything belonged to them. In that case, why did the Eibusha say that you have to borrow it? That will come to in a second. Why is it the Eibusha guys and so borrow it? That's another matter. But we can say even simpler than that. We can say the Pashtas El Derech said, albeit it's in the same way, that that's what Rashi says right at the very beginning of the Torah. Rashi says, look, what are you guys up to? Yeah, the first mitzvah in the Torah should have been, like this, that's the first mitzvah because the speech power. Why didn't the Torah start with that? So Rashi said the whole Torah started with Bereshis to show you that Eibusha owns the world. He created it, it's his. That's what Rashi said. Therefore, the Goyim are going to come along and say, listen, Eretz Yisrael was ours and you took it away from us. It's just like it's written in the Gemara, which could have been, what is his name? And so what is the answer? The Eibusha says, everything belongs to me. I gave it to them. And Ashav, Biratreni, in my Rotzen, I took it from them and I gave it to the Yidden, and until there'll be a further notification, that's the way it remains. That's the first Rashi in the Torah. So what do we see from that? We see that the Eibusha being the balabas over the whole Bria, he can move one chest man on over there, and that's where it stays until there'll be some new indication of the situation. Even though he didn't went into Golus and the Eibusha threw him off to Yisrael, he didn't write anywhere that he's given out to Yisrael to somebody else. And therefore the Ramban brings down in Pasha B'chul Koisai that it doesn't help the Goyim. And the Rebbe said on several occasions, to give the Goyim Eretz Yisrael is ruining them. Pick to say it's ruining the Yidden, and maybe even worse in a way. To give them Eretz Yisrael is just getting them into trouble because it's not theirs. Al-Pi Torah has no shaykhut to them. And a part of the world belongs to the Eibusha also, but the Eibusha said let the Goyim have it. Of Eretz Yisrael, he said let the Yidden have it. And there's been no change. There's never been a further notification. Never in the whole of history, all the Eibusha said was, listen, you guys, you didn't look after your Beis HaMikdash, the ganze Moshe from the Levitz Petitiva. I gave you a nice suit, so I'm taking it away. I'm only taking it away in order that you should earn it back. But I'm not taking it away in the sense it doesn't belong to you. And therefore, we have to go back to the first Rashi. That's the Ebenezer, what he's maramas here, that everything goes back, that the whole world belongs to Hashem. He can move certain things from this ownership to that ownership, Chai v'kayom ein malasor. And therefore the Eibusha said that the whole Eretz Yisrael belongs to the Eretz Canaan, it belonged to the Canaanites, to the family of Canaan. Now it belongs to the Ein Malasot was it. And remember the same thing with the money, with the Marshur is talking about in the Gemara there in Sanhedrin with the old Mazan, whatever his name was. And the Marshur says that that's the principle which governs all these inyanim. That the money from the mitzvah is the same thing. That's exactly what the Ebenezer said. That if the money from the mitzvah belongs to the Yidden, because the Eibishter said it's got to go over to them. I say, if that's what really the pshat is, what he said about working for wages, that was just like a good teretz, yeah, for Grobta of a guy like Alexander the Great. Yeah, that was good enough for him, and for these other Grobta which was enough for them. Well, but that's not really the emerson teretz. You know, if he was there, ask yourself the child, why did they have to ask for it? Just walk in and take it. They said, listen, they just said we're going to take this. Why did they have to go through this whole Yidden? And therefore the Yidden themselves weren't particularly anxious, because they said, listen, we don't care about the whole thing. Yeah, we'd like to get out. What did you do? Where did they go to? Why did the Eibishter have to force it, that they have to take it? And base, why did he have to do it in a way of what looks almost like a ramir? It looks almost like just come on and say, I'm moving it from this side of the chessboard to that side of the chessboard. Ve'ein moneh miyadi. So therefore we have to come on to the famous piyut, which is Al Pi Kabbalah. But the Arizal said that the Yidden were in Mitzrayim, that since Mitzrayim was like the big knob of the whole world at that time, that the Yidden were in Mitzrayim in order to be Mavarer as Mitzrayim. They had to take out all the Netzutzes out of Mitzrayim. And the emes is that they took all the Netzutzes almost out of the whole world, because they took Reish Beis, Netzutzes, right at the beginning of next week's parsha. It's written that Eirav Rav Ola Imohim, that a big mixture of peoples went with them out of Egypt. And as well known, the Rizal said that the word Rav is Reish Beis, that's 210 Netzutzes. And how many Netzutzes are there altogether? 288. So that means another 86 Netzutzes. And we're still bothering our cups about these other 86 Netzutzes. You see how long it took? And you know the famous beer of Pitzidas Fabucha, because 86 is Begematria Elokim, and Elokim means that everything looks to be a Matthias. Everything seems to make sense of the way the world says it makes sense. And that's why it's taking so long, because we take the world to be a Matthias, and we think it's a whole mass. We don't realize that the world is bottled by Matthias. You got some problem now. And remember, the inyan from Elokim Begematria Ha-Teva. What does that mean? That everybody says, oh, it's just so Peter, it's always running the world, that's the way it goes. But that's been holding us up in Golas for all these hundreds of years. Over 200 Reish Beis, 202 of them were already taken out when the Yidden left Mitzrayim. I remember there was a huge inyan of Bitul Kol HaMetzias Shel Mitzrayim. And they took out all the Netzutzes from Mitzrayim, nothing left. And so it's written, Rashi keeps saying, Rekonun, they emptied them out of everything that they had. Therefore the Arizal said, that that's why it is that there's a mitzvah in the Torah not to go back ever to Mitzrayim. You're allowed to go back to Mitzrayim. And the Rambam brings it down. The Rambam Paskins, as that you're allowed to go and live in Mitzrayim. And even though the Rambam himself lived quite a large part of his lifetime in Mitzrayim, you know the famous Kauchi on the Rambam. And I think he even wrote a letter saying why he had no choice but to do it, even though Enoch Hanami holds you're not really supposed to be there with the ganze Riches Bezer. The Rizal said, why is it that a Yid's not allowed to go back to Mitzrayim? He said, because it's finished. Mitzrayim has no more Kedusha, nothing there whatsoever. The Yidden took all out and left Mitzrayim. It's all been emptied out. There's nothing left. Therefore, Yidden haven't got what to do over there. Ein lehem masot sham. Therefore, you're not supposed to go to Mitzrayim. Is that door closed, by the way? Yeah. It shows how much I've spoken about, how much I've explained to people. And it's mamish tzumulom. They know that it happens. even the parents, everybody. It's a lesson from them. And unfortunately, it's a deliberate, they deliberately come here to make trouble. That's such a terrible thing in their education, that happens. I can't understand. Anyway, often push it. I've spoken about it tens of times. And I just don't know. I don't know, I mean, you'll probably just make it worse. That's the trouble. It's probably better to just keep quiet. It's just so, angering that they don't have anything to do with this issue. They don't belong here. They have nothing whatever to do with it. They just come here to make trouble, and everybody knows about it, and nobody does anything about it. They come here deliberately in order to make trouble. Anyway, so it comes out of his head that Mitzrayim was Kimatzula She'ein Bo Dogon. The whole thing was a trap, but it's no longer a trap anymore. It's got nothing in it. It's finished. Or Mitzulais She'ein Bo Dagim is another view. There's two differences between the two inyonim. What it comes out is that Mitzrayim is finished. There's no reason to go back there again, and therefore there's a mitzvah in the Torah not to go back there again. And why did it have to go by way of deception? You're literally asking that. So there's an amazing thing written in Siddur that how did the whole first hate occur? The whole first hate occurred through deception. That's for the hate Eitz Hadas, the Nochash HaKatmeni. He deceived Chava and Adam. He spoke to them and he dragged them into a inyan what they didn't want to get involved in. They went by way of deception. If I remember the original collapse of all of the Natutas, and the collapse of all of the Inyonei HaKedusha, that there could be such a thing as Mitzrayim, a koach of Klippa in the world, well, that came about through deception. And therefore, in Kedusha, in order to win back the Natutas, you've got to be able to use a certain form of deception. That's why we find that Yaakov Avinu, when he was by Lavan, he had to go through around about almost what looks like a trickery in order to get at the Netutah. Because they're holding them so heavily on the basis of a trickery. And they're not going to let them out unless they're dealt with in a similar way, as we stated in Drusha considered. And therefore, the whole Indian had to go through a way that it looked as if it was like just borrowing. They said, oh, borrowing. Okay, and they gave out. Otherwise, they would never have given. I always said if they thought they were going to have to give a matana, they would never have given. The whole inyan of Mitzrayim was like the beginning and the end of a huge koyach of bira in the whole universe. And there's only left a small amount, and we've been breaking our heads, and the Yidden have been breaking their heads, and the Neshamas and the Gufim for decades, generations and generations in the Golas to try and finish off that last amount. Over this, in Mitzrayim, it's already been finished. It's ending. That's the Syrian that Rashi says, Momein Harbe, way back there by Avraham Avinu. Because it's well known that the Momein of a person in that is hidden is Natzuta, like the Baal Shem Tov said. In your Momein and in the things that you own, and in where your money is invested, that's where all your Natzutas are. That's why you've got to be very careful with your money to use it honestly and fully. Otherwise you can throw your money into into the Liyumatzeh. And if come to Isla that the whole Indian of taking the mitzvah money, that was an essential condition in the whole Indian of the Giyur. And therefore it keeps repeating itself time after time. Or in the monetary side of it, the Yidden weren't interested. Mamish in the Gil, Moshe Rabbeinu knew he would have to urge them to do that, because they weren't really interested in there. But so they had to do it, because that was part of the Ika cleansing of the whole world from the Nephilas and the Tzutzis and the Chaytei Tzadar. And that's why the Rebbe said, I'm moving from here over to here. I'm taking it. It's my Yin and Kedivra Ebenezer. And Mother Ebenezer says beautifully. He said it was a divine matter that therefore nobody can claim anything. It's not shy to Geneva, to Geneva Zadat. David said, and why did he say to do it what looks like Geneva Zadat? That's the way to get the Netzutzis out of the Klippa. And now we understand what the Rebbe says about the matzah behind Tikkitzait. as the Rebbe says that the Golus is finished. All Yidden need to do in this Golus, it's already been done. It's finished. If ein malasot yoter in the whole, the Golus throughout the whole world, not just Mitzrayim. And remember, Yidden have got to get out. All they got to do is get up and say, we want to get out, it should be out. And just like the Yidden, when they went out of Mitzrayim, they emptied out the whole Mitzrayim. It's finished, emptied out. Kimatzula she'ein bo dokim. It's had it. It's empty completely. Reish base out of the whole reish becher. Finished. And remember, the Rambam says that Yid he doesn't know what to go into Mitzrayim. Cloud. Ein man al socha. The same says the Rebbe with the whole Golus. He would have gone to. Didn't have got none. If Yidden would have said that tens and tens of years ago, and they would have said that our claim to it is so. And so we were driving today. I went to be Menachem Oval today by somebody. Driving, the taxi driver said to me, "Oh, you see in that house over there, first president of Israel. He used to live there." I said, "Well, I wish he would never have been." Because he wasn't a very I don't want to say anything about the Niftar. I certainly shouldn't say bad things about anybody who passed away. But, except for Goyim, of course. But, unfortunately, the whole mass, with the Tzionim and with the whole Tzionias and with the ganze Dos, it was an unfortunate sort of tsura for the ganze Jewish people. And when you look back on these guys, they were all villains at the first order, all of them. And they got Yidden into terrible trouble. But anyway, whatever, suffice it to say that if Yidden would have said right at the beginning of the whole thing that it's not right what this guy's saying, that we don't belong in Eretz Yisrael because Belfor or some goy, Rahmanin Iklan, said that we do, and we belong in Eretz Yisrael because the Eivishter Yisrael, then the Bli Sofik that a long time ago had already been with the Gula Shlema, because we don't belong in the Golus, and the Rebbe says it's finished. So what's happening now with this whole visit of Bush and the whole thing is that they're doing exactly the opposite. They're saying, oh yes, we do belong in the Golus. Mr. Bush, we do. You are the boss. You come and fix it all up. And there's nobody to give it to. They've all gone Meshuggah, they're all killing one another after Hamas is gehaget, I don't know how many hundreds of their leaders over there, and this fellow miles in them, and they've all, either they've fallen or they just can't do anything, they're helpless. And nonetheless, this war criminal, he's running the country. He says, oh, we'll give it to whoever, whatever goyim will just present himself behind the table on the day that we're going to sign the whole, we'll give it to him. How can he cut the Meshuggah to give it to somebody? Aviv Potter, Rahmanin Iklan, to get out of the hands of Eretz Yisrael. This is unbelievable. It can't be explained in any human terms, even in devilish terms. It can't be explained. This is beyond all human understanding. Elamai, it's how a Yid has got the ability to work back the other way, dafki into the goal. That's what we brought in Moshe Ben, the Maral Miprag said there's certain people, Rahman in Islam, that they're dilatory. You remember in that year, they're like informant, they go back the other way. They want to give Yidden into the hands of the Goyim. And so those people are running the whole country. Now what they want to do is say, no, go back into the Golas, but deep into the Golas. Don't ever mention such a thing that Yidden belong or that they had to get upset. A reality in this world. We don't really exist. Just be positive that the Goy should be happy and everything will be good. Oh, everything will be good. We see. Look at what's happening down there in Shteirot. Every day hundreds of these rockets are falling. So people say to me, what are you so worried about? It'll be alright, everything will be fine, don't worry. You're not allowed to do that. Let's say on Shabbos somebody's terribly ill, unbelievably ill. And the din is that you have to look after him on Shabbos. You have to be Machal Shabbos. And they say, oh no, everything will be alright. Hashem will help. So what the Torah says at that moment, and Hashem says at that moment, that you have to not think of Hashem at that moment. You got to think, what are we going to do for that Yid? And then Hashem will help us on other matters. Hashem will help that at that particular moment you don't think of Hashem's mitzvah, but you think only of that person. Then Hashem will help. And I remember we're in this terrible situation where we're doing exactly the opposite. That's the answer to the other question that occurs each time it's written, that the mitzvah are going to give you more than what you asked for. They're going to love you and say, oh yes, of course, take the whole caboodle. So everybody says, why should, at that moment, would have been suffering all these machis, and all of a sudden you come asking them, they'll say, oh, of course, take this, take that. You know, they should go for their Tommy guns or something. And start driving you out. No, the grace and the favor in the eyes of the Goyim that you're going to have. What is the Biur B'zeh? Well, that's what the Rebbe said. When a Yid goes fast, when a stilts of Dvar Hashem, and he said that Dvar Hashem Zu Halacha, that's the way things have to be done, then the Goy says, oh, what a wonderful person this is. And he's so happy, and he's happy to give him anything you want. But if you come not with that, and you come with some Meshuggah Goy or somebody say, oh, he says I am able to sit in a few hundred square yards, and it's a soil. So then the Goy says, oh, what's wrong with Meshuggah? Let's trample on him. And that's exactly what they do. But if you would come and talk strongly in the name of Hashem, and you say, listen, if you guys don't give us so you're going to get Eser Machis, and who knows what you're going to get, and the Goy says, sorry, I don't know, take Eretz Yisrael. Take Saudi Arabia also. And what the will. It keeps repeating. Look, you see it all three places. It's written each time that there's going to be like a respect and a love. And one of them, unfortunately, I can't remember which one it was, the Rashba, one of them, he says that was an amazing part of the nest. That when the Yidden actually came to the door and said, give us, the military, instead of taking their, their up-to-date weapons and driving them out of the house, they said, oh, you guys, of course, the whole wardrobe was there, you could take whatever you would like. What would you like? No, take two, take three. In other words, had we gone the right way from the beginning, how would the president of the Zionistic state, if we gone with the way that the Eibishter said? We said that Eretz Yisrael Canaan belongs to it, because the Eibishter said to move it on the chessboard over here. There was of course, what sort of a shaila? He said Hashem is Chainua. That's the Rebbe. You've got to realize that on every step you have to hear what is the Rebbe's message, what is he all about. And even we in Chabad, we haven't. This the other night I went to this kenes of the people they protested. It was a kenes. And one of the Rabbanim over there, Rav Volpe, he said some pretty sharp things, but he said the only things which are eminent. One of the Chabad people that doesn't do anything about it, he just never says a word, nothing gornish, never complains, and just he said, oh, that's not the Avos Yisrael to talk that way. So that's the most terrible Chil Hashem to say anything like that. Here's a man talking he's being moiche, and he's protesting and trying to protect the Jewish people, and you come along and say, oh, he's not talking Avos Yisrael. Sugar. Out of mind. So what are we supposed to talk Avos Yisrael about somebody that he wants to pull down the whole Jewish people and make Rahman and Islam, who knows what? You have to talk with Avos Yisrael. You've got to call a spade a spade. When it comes to Pikuach Nefesh, you say, oh, I have to love everybody, I can't do anything about it. It's pitiful. I mean, absolutely pitiful. And that's what's happening. People who don't want to listen carefully to the Rebbe's message, they can still be doing, they can still say they're Chabad and everything, but they'll say things opposite of what the Rebbe wants. And they'll be quite cold-blooded about it. In other words, we're digging back into the Golos. And here's the Rebbe, and he says, we're out of the Golos already. Just say that you're no longer in the Golos, you want to go out. Just say it in the name of the Eibishter, and boom, all the girls, oh, you, sure, Lechem. Take it. It's yours. Gesundheit. Take whatever you want. And it's in the Pesukim. And therefore he said, we don't want the money. He said, you don't want it, but I want you to have it. I want you to go out with everything, because the moment in that is hidden all the netzutzes and all the inyanim al pikol. Then we're going to do it. You guys don't want the money. And there are Chaim says an amazing thing. Mamish, he's bull. He said, you know why Eden to this day are very successful in business? I said, I can show it to you. He said, because at that particular moment in Mitzrayim, they said to the Eibishter, we're not interested in the money. The Eibishter said, you're not, but I am interested that you guys are going to have the money. But not because you want the money. And he said, if a Yid does business that way, that he wants to take the money just to use it for the things Hashem wants him to use it for, he'll become a Gvir in a few days. As he stated there, Hashem said, all Yidden become Gvirim, and all Yidden should have all the kesef for Zohar, and they should have all the somoles, all the beautiful things that they need, that they should say clearly to the Goyim, we are the Malabatim on Eretz Yisrael, could the Eibishter moved on the chessboard. He took it from here, and he gave it over there, and the others are the same with the geld. It all belongs to the Yidden, but only because the Eibishter moved it from here to, from here to there, is a never take you from here, we should be with Melech HaMashiach, and we all know who that is. We should be with him together, Mamish Papashta, immediately take it from here now. Amen.